Today, on Issue at Hand, we cast our eyes back a million years to the beginning of this year. Here are the biggest events in comics from 2017 that you shouldn't miss. This is Issue at Hand, Polygon's show about the strange world of comics, and I'm your host, Susana. 2017 is almost over, so it's that season again, the time when I use my goldfish memory to try and think of a single comic book that has ever been published, let alone a good one. So, to stall for time, let's recap a few of the biggest comics news stories of 2017. Because you know it's been a weird year for comics when an indie cartoonist kills off his most popular character because a meme based on it was co-opted as a symbol of white supremacy. 2017's big comic news kicked off in late January, when the New York Times Book Review quietly shuttered its bestseller lists for graphic novels. Why was this such a big deal? Well, aside from how the New York Times has historically devalued comics as an art form, it's also connected into how obsessed the comics industry is with sales figures. And sure, nerds love to quantitatively value qualitative things, but the American comics industry makes it really easy to do that because, as we covered in our How to Buy Comics episode, Diamond Comic Distributors has a monopoly on comic sales and shipping in the US, and Diamond publicly releases its sales figures every month. The New York Times bestseller list provided a window into comic sales that focused on the book market for comics, and showed a very different picture of what kind of books could succeed, just by being formatted and marketed in a different way. The fact that it's gone now, when big comics publishers are finally starting to acknowledge the growth of their audience through graphic novel and collection sales, is a big blow. 2017 also saw the loss of some big talents in comics history. Len Wein will be remembered for creating Wolverine, Swamp Thing, Lucius Fox, and the modern X-Men lineup, not to mention editing Watchmen and bringing so much new British talent to DC Comics that their work defined the 80s. Joan Lee, the wife of Stan Lee, advised him to throw caution to the wind and just write the superhero team he wanted to write, which became the Fantastic Four and the Marvel Universe as we know it. But if there's only two comics news stories you should follow up on this year, it's Marvel Comics' extremely unpopular Secret Empire event and the firing of DC Comics editor Eddie Berganza after years of sexual harassment allegations against him. We're going to put a lot of links to these stories in the description below, but both of them represent a change of eras for Marvel and DC. Secret Empire, the story where bad guys turned Captain America into a fascist and he took over the world, has been so deeply unpopular among fans and uncomfortably politically relevant that Marvel released a statement to ABC News essentially spoiling the ending, while begging readers to stick with it. And it's hard not to look at Marvel replacing its editor-in-chief in that context. The publisher has had a very bad PR year, and somehow it's still happening. Over at DC, Eddie Berganza, editor of the Superman Group, was fired this fall after 5 former DC employees went public with their experiences of his inappropriately sexual behavior towards them. It is a long-awaited removal that will hopefully open the Superman office, which includes the Supergirl and Wonder Woman titles, to new management and new talent and a new era. So, hey, it ain't all depressing. I mean, Catwoman and Batman got engaged. Now, here are some good comics from 2017 that you shouldn't miss. We'll start with Mariko Tamaki and Nico Leone's Hulk. After the death of Bruce Banner, Jennifer Walters is no longer She-Hulk, she's just Hulk. And on top of dealing with her cousin's murder, which most of the world considers a heroic victory, she's still recovering from being beaten into a coma by Thanos. When Jen used to Hulk out, she got to keep her personality and brains, but nowadays she finds herself with less control than she's used to. Tamaki makes Hulk a book about Jen balancing her mental health as she goes back to work as an attorney for folks with superhuman problems. She adds in a supervillain who preys on fear, doubt, and paranoia, and reframes the metaphor of hulking out with the language of anxiety rather than anger. And that's pretty cool. But if you're interested in a story about anxiety without the superheroes, 2017 was the year that My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness was translated and published for Western audiences. Kabi Nagata's memoir gets personal, really personal, about her struggles with depression, her sexuality, and parental expectations. Nagata's work is a window into Japanese culture that I just don't get every day, and her depiction of her journey to better mental health is brutally honest and totally relatable. Next up, do yourself a favor and read the original Mr. Miracle. 2017 would have been Jack Kirby's 100th birthday, and DC Comics has been reissuing collections of his work all year in his honor. So if you want to know why comics people won't ever shut up about Jack Kirby, I recommend picking up the new collection of Mr. Miracle. Kirby was 54 when he created the fourth world, and it was 1971, and yet the characters feel like they could have walked onto the page in 2017 from a modern creator at the top of their game. Mr. Miracle is fully operatic in story and setting, but it still feels full of familiar emotions and resonant themes. And finally, a shout out to the books I didn't have time to read this year. I kept getting told to read Motor Crush all year. Did I? No. It's got fabulous art from some creators I really like, and it's literally about a sci-fi motorcycle girl gang. What is my problem? Black Bolt gets consistent praise from folks I respect. It's the first time I've been interested in an Inhuman story, and I love Christian Ward's art. Have I read it? Not a page. Ask me again in 2018. Next time, on Issue at Hand, the surprisingly complicated answer to the question, who makes comics? About her struggles with depression, her wow, okay.
Sexuality.
All right. Shut up, Tara.